Hi there, Dan here. This is a tutorial on using PolyLens as an off-site provisioning server for Poly devices and getting it working with Microsoft Teams SIP gateway to allow SIP phones and devices to make MS Teams calls whilst maintaining some of the benefits of having a provisioning server. So I am using a VVX 401 handset here. I have done this successfully also with a VVX 601 and a Trio A800. But anything that can be recognized by Lens, which is most devices that allow you to put in a custom provisioning server, should work absolutely fine for this. So first thing I've done on the actual device itself is I've given it a factory reset. And I'm going to quickly go under to settings. Under status, I'm just going to get the IP address for this device network TCP IP parameters. Cool, so that is 192.168.1.134. I'm going to access this on the web. And you'll see it's going to say warning, potential security risk ahead. That's expected given these. If you've worked with any Poly devices or Polycom devices, you know this is something happens. So I'll accept the risk and continue. I'm going to put in the admin password, which should still be the default. Because it's a reset device. Cool. Default password in use, please change. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to utilities. I'm going to go software upgrade, and I'm going to upgrade from the actual device itself. So I'm on 5.8.0. If I check from updates, you'll actually see we're on 6.43b, which is the latest release stream. So I'm just going to install that. Let the phone do its thing. Accept its EULA. And the phone has updated itself. You can see it's just rebooted there. That'll just install the new version of the firmware, which is important because Lens won't actually communicate with anything that is too out of date, particularly with reference to the way that Teams sets its stuff up. So while that phone's updating, we're just going to go back to here. We're going to go into our Teams dashboard. You will need to obviously be able to either make communication with those who can make changes to the Teams dashboard policy from the Microsoft Admin Center, or you yourself will need access to this. The important thing we're looking at here is voice and calling policies, and then we're going to go to whatever you want to do. In this case, I'm going to do it in global org wide, but you can obviously add a separate policy group if you want to. And in global org wide, the important thing we're looking for here is SIP devices can be used for calls, and make sure that is turned on. I obviously turned this on because I've been testing this recently, so it's already on by default there, but you'd need to turn that on yourself, save it, let it do its thing. What we're going to do next then is we're going to go into PolyLens. Now I'm going to log in with Microsoft. I'm actually going to use the default user I have. This is the user I've got the global admin access with. In theory, you do not need access to this. This is just to work as a provisioning server. So if your login is not the global admin or any admin that has access to the Teams dashboard settings, should not be a problem. Now this is a site I've already got because I've got some other devices on and working. But what we're going to do here, I'm going to go to account, I'm going to go manage accounts, and I'm going to add a new site. And I'm going to call this test site. I'm going to hit confirm, and it's going to start creating this site for me. Now I'm going to go into test site, and you're going to see that if I try to go to device provisioning, your account is being synchronized. Provisioning will be available within 15 minutes. So we're just going to wait for a bit, and we'll be back once it's all good to go. And we're back. The PolyLens platform has created our provisioning capacity. So what we've got to do now is I'm going to create a server username. So I'm going to do a test account. I'm going to do a generic password for it as well. And enable provisioning. There we go. So device software version upgraded to a PolyLens capable device. And this happens by default when you connect the provisioning details. However, I found during my initial testing that it actually worked better if you updated the firmware first to a relatively modern version, so the latest one it'll allow, and then if it's Lens compatible, it will allow you to convert from there. So we're going to go back to the phone handset now because passwords need changing. So I'm going to change the default password. I'm just going to change it to 123 for the moment. I will obviously change this afterwards. It just gives me a default way to do. Admin password set, cool. So I'm going to go back to menu, settings. We're going to go through to status, just double check that the IP address has not changed for us. No, it's still 134. So back on the platform, I'm going to refresh. Authorization failed, the page is hit. Cool, that's fine. Put in the new admin password and it'll pull me into this slightly nicer menu. So you see stuff's vital. We've got the new updated, even we've got the new Poly menu there. I'm now going to go into settings and provisioning server. And then within Lens, I'm going to copy the provisioning server address, pop that in there. I'm going to also change the server type to HTTPS. And I'm going to put in the details we did, which was test account. And then the password. I'm going to hit save. Hit yes, and then that should reboot the phone. But if it doesn't, I might have to restart the phone manually. There we go, it's restarting. So once the device is restarted, we'll be able to see it within Lens. Okay, so back within Lens now, and I've gone manage inventory. And within there, you can see that I've now got one phone in my inventory list. It's currently unknown, but if I click on it, I've got this device here. I can name it. So if you want to name it to a location, you can do that. There's also site assignment and room assignment if you want to do any filters and physical addresses for the sites. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. I'm going to keep this unassigned. I'm going to call this test phone, just so we know which phone it is. Hit save. And then that's pretty much it to get it initially provisioned. The device is on the server. There is one other change you want to make, and that is within settings. Before you do anything else, you're going to want to go all the way down to servers. And the server information here, you're going to want to get the provisioning server address. You put in here, HTTPS, and this is the Poly. This is actually the Poly Lens provisioning details. So this is something that I actually got a little bit confused about the first time. I thought you put the server address, which is what the team's provisioning in was, which got me confused for a bit of time. In this point here, and it may seem recursive, you put the provisioning details for the account or the site that you are running on Poly Lens. By doing this, every time the phone connects to this provisioning server, it tells it to look at the cloud provisioning server on Poly Lens. If you do it another way, it's basically the same as if you went, okay, I've updated it now, and then it defaults to whatever other address, which causes some problems with Microsoft Teams if that's the way we're getting to do it. So I'm going to hit apply. Don't want to save that. And then back within device inventory, I'm just going to restart the device from the cloud, which is quite a fun feature. And you can hear that the phone's just restarted. So while that phone is restarting, what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at how we can manage these devices. Now, in my instance, I'm going to be running only about 2 or 3 of these devices on via Lens in this way. However, obviously, you might want to run a significantly larger number of these handsets, and you really don't want to set them all up manually. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to device groups. I'm going to create a new device group. I'm going to call this test group. So I've created a test group within the device group page. And within that, you can see that we don't actually have any devices in here at the moment, but available to add our test phone handset is. So I'm going to click add to group, and that's going to add us to the group. And you'll see it's been removed from the available to add model. Now, settings, you can't really do much with it, but what we're interested in is policies. Now, the policies, it can only be added per handset model. So if I actually go to add here, it only lets me add a handset that's compatible. And you can see there's quite a large chunk of handsets that are compatible. But you can only have one policy per handset model. You can only have one policy set per handset model. So if you wanted to do multiple of these, you would need to add multiple device groups. And that could get a bit awkward. So ideally, if you want to have differing policies between those devices of the same model, you really want to make sure that you can separate them in device groups. And you're not having a device that is going to be across multiple device groups needing 2 different policy sets that are taking priority. But as I'm aware, that's the same way it would behave on standard provisioning servers that are on site. So we're going to go into device, into the policy for that device even, and it's going to give us a lovely loading, and you can see it's all the settings we're going to need. So the first thing we want to do, we're going to go to servers. I'm going to rebuild the provisioning server details in here. Although I have done it on the device, I'm going to do it here as well. With the appropriate password. Worth noting as well in PolyLens, if you hit tab, it just goes to the next unit, so always click within the fields. That is one frustration, but when I spoke to someone from Poly, it is on the roadmap to resolve, as I'm aware. Available device provisioning on boot server, any other custom requirements you need. SFB, I'm going to turn off that never save password. We're not worrying about because of other configuring settings, because we've set our own provisioning server for it. Calendaring, if you want to add calendar servers into it as well, you can. What I really want to do, however, is then go into integrations. Not software updates, integrations. I want to then turn on enable lens assisted provisioning for Microsoft Teams SIP gateway. I'm going to click on EMEA. I'm going to make sure it's running English. Because that's where I'm based. Obviously, if you're on APAC or the Americas, you select the SIP gateway region that you need to run. And that's mostly it. There's one other setting I want to quickly look at first, though. I believe it is in general settings. General settings. No, it's not. It will probably be. There it is. Provider, base profile, generic, OpenSIP. With those settings in place, I can now hit save. And that is our handset set up. It will now go to the phone and it will get itself restarting. Now, if it does not restart by itself, because group policies are a bit weird. If you do it per device, it's fine. But if you do it to group policies, what you can do is you can go to the inventory stick contingent, click on the phone you need to click on. Once it's loaded, you can hit restart device. Or a feature that's currently in preview, but is hopefully going to be coming out soon, is within device groups. Within that group, you can actually reboot all devices. Now, it says it's in premium beta. I'm not actually in premium beta, but I can still use it. I'm going to hit reboot devices. The phone's going off. And that is going to install the MS Teams framework and the application for it on the device. So I'm just going to accelerate this bit of the video here, show you what it looks like when it's installing. And we'll be back in a moment. Look at that, it's all lovely and updated for us. So, go hit the sign in button and it's going to open us to the standard Microsoft login utility. So it's microsoft.com/device login. I'm then going to quickly put in the pair code we've got here. Next. It's going to ask me to sign in with an account. Now, I've got a couple of accounts here. I'm going to sign in with a different account because this is one that I know has got the correct licenses for a Teams login. So this will be... And what I'm after here is I'm after accounts that have got... The account's going to have the correct licenses for it, which is going to be a domestic calling plan. It requires an actual device that allows you to call to a phone line rather than a conventional Teams account. So you need to have a Teams phone number, as I'm sure you're aware if you're dealing with handsets with the SIP gateway, but it's just worth noting anyway that those licenses are what is needed. So the handset is now at a point where I'm going to restart it manually. So I'm going to leave it as it is on here. I'm going to go to settings, basic, and just hit reboot handset. Obviously I could do this from the cloud as well, but it's just worth knowing. It should by default restart as it is, but sometimes there are a few hiccups with it going forwards once you've put it to a provisioning server. However, once it's logged in, it's not an issue. So the phone handset is restarted there. It's got the relative native and it should log into the details in a moment. It should take our credentials. There you go. It's doing a secondary reboot to now log in with our Teams credentials. And so here we are back in Teams. You can see that there is a number now provided. And if I go to my phone and I call the number, the handset will now ring. So we know it works. We've got the right licenses in place and the Teams account works. The problem I have, however, is that I don't have a custom ringtone. Now, there are many reasons why you might want to have a custom ringtone. You might want to have an identity thing. It might be to identify particular handsets. In my case, it's to differentiate our handsets from where these phones are going to be installed to other handsets from other people who will be using the space, because these phones are going in a flexible co-working environment. So to do this, we're going to go back to the PolyLens platform, and we're going to go to manage, and we're going to open up our resource files location. So in the resource files location, you can see that we've got no files at the moment. So I'm going to click add. I'm going to add a resource file from my computer. I'm going to add the Sony Ericsson ringtone. And it has to be done in a particular way. So if you've got to make sure it's compliant with your handset. The handset it's going to is compliant with that file. So you want it to be, in my case, I'm doing a 16 kilohertz sample rate, 16-bit uncompressed WAV file. With that done, I'm now going to go back to device groups. I'm going to go to test group. And within the policies for the 401 handset, I'm going to go into audio alerts. So first thing I want to do is custom audio files. Custom audio file 1. I'm going to map in the Ericsson file by clicking on the little thing there that opens up that window. With that done, I'm now going to go to ringer tone pattern. Now, if you're not familiar with this, this is how you basically write the ringtones in. Now, in the VVX 401 handset and the VVX 601, which is the other handset I've been testing with, ringer 15 is the first custom ringtone on the list. So I'm going to call this Ericsson. And I'm not typing slowly. It's this is the one problem I do have, is that this is quite a the ringtone pattern is quite a slow user interface. I believe that's also in the pipeline for Poly to fix. So ringer is Ericsson. The pattern type value is 1 because that referring to whichever custom audio file. Now we put our file in slot 1. The pattern type is sampled because it is a sampled audio file. We're then leaping in the other 2 bits, which is a 3000 silence pattern and then a -2 branch, so it loops back to the beginning after the silence break. And that's just good practice for ringtones because it just pulls it back, it makes it loop properly. I'm then going to go to general settings. Now, enable ringtone, yes, and allow users to change ringtones. I have not found this to work for VVX handsets. This might work for other handsets, but I could not lock the handset out from changing the ringtone. So I'm going to leave this on. But if you did want to make it from the provisioning service setting the policies for the handsets, you want to obviously turn that setting off there. And then within ringtone, you can set the devices to ring, however you set the custom devices to ring. Now, in my case, the VVX handset only has 1 ringtone, although you can set per policy, but I'm not dealing with that at the moment, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. So I'm just going to hit apply changes. There, so it's saying group policy has been assigned. So I'm going to need to go to manage device groups, test group, select that, reboot devices. And the handset's now restarted. So we will sort out the file in a moment once the handset's restarted. Our phone has restarted, so I'm going to go into the home menu. I'm going to go to settings. We're going to go down to basic, ring type, and if we scroll all the way down through to number 15, we should see, would you look at that, Ericsson is there. And if I click on that and I hit play, we can hear we have the custom file working. So I'm just going to go back to home quickly. And whilst I'm in here, the other thing I'm going to quickly change is the theme, which is in the preferences window. I'm just going to change it to Broadsoft because I prefer the Broadsoft. So we'll just restart that quickly. While the phone's restarting quickly with the theme change, one thing that's worth noting is that because we are running through to Teams, there are actually several policies that are set by Microsoft that we cannot change. So you can see policy inheritance come through from the group policy for the ringers. But if I go through to features, for example, and I go to custom soft keys, this stuff is all locked by policy, and you'll see I didn't change that. If I actually remove this device from the policy inheritance, that is locked by Teams. So it's the custom soft keys. And then in device customization as well, the background image is also locked by Microsoft Teams as well. So there's nothing I can do about that. If you want to know the ins and outs of what devices are, what policies are going to be affected by your handset per Teams, what I'd suggest doing is going into the provisioning server to that, and then going into the integrations level and turning that on, and it'll work that way. But also, what's worth noting, policy inheritance, it shows you where it comes from. It shows you it's come from test group. Whereas other settings, if I go back to features, for example, and I go to soft keys, you'll see it says it's locked, but does not show the policy group. That's usually a very good indicator that that's been restricted by Microsoft Teams. So unfortunately, there's not much I can really do with that. But for my use case, where I literally just want a phone that's using a Teams number, I don't want a full integrated Teams phone, because if I wanted one of them, we'd have to get a new handset. This works really, really well. And so I'm back in the phone now. You can see that we're running the Broadsoft. Now, it doesn't look too good on the camera because of that lovely green. But if I go into home, I go through to settings, I go to, you'll see that the ringer is actually still there, and it's still selected as our default. So if I call this phone now, we'll now hear our Sony Ericsson theme. And that's it. That is how to set up a VVX handset or any number of Poly handset with the PolyLens provisioning server. This is a really great platform because it's fully cloud-based. And at the moment, I'm writing, this is, to date this video, this is just coming up the end of July 2022. This product is free for those with Poly handsets. I didn't actually buy these handsets. I didn't have any proof of receipt for the handsets, and I managed to get access to this product for free. There are some features that are locked behind premium licensing, but I am yet to come to that issue. From what I've been told from the guys at Poly, these are similar features to that would be locked behind other provisioning server licenses. So it's more just removes the need for you to have a provisioning server on your site if you're doing what I'm doing and you're only using 1 or 2 handsets and you still want to have that custom capacity. Or alternatively, you want to manage multiple sites without needing to set up a provisioning server on that site itself. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope this video was useful, and take care.